When a former national security advisor goes on national media and discusses how hard it is to plan a coup, it gets attention. And that spilling of the tea just happened with John Bolton, the former national security advisor for Donald Trump, who, in the context of talking about the January 6th events, talked about how hard it was to plan a coup and using Venezuela as an example.
As somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat, not here, but other places, it takes a lot of work.
Now, this blatant imperialism that the U.S. engages in is masked behind the rhetoric of wanting to spread democracy and freedom to these other sovereign nations. But usually that's a veil for the real true interest, which is to keep and hold economic and military power. And that is part of the unipolar view or the position of the U.S. to have friendly and amenable governments. Like, for instance, in 2014, when the U.S. Decided to get rid of the government in Ukraine, and Victoria Nuland and others have been exposed for basically engaging in a coup that changed the leadership to a puppet government in Ukraine, and unfortunately led to the pushing up of borders, the expansion of NATO up against the Russian borders. And this kind of aggression ended up with huge losses of life and also have led us to this moment in history. So there have been example after example of how the U.S. has used the rhetoric of democracy and freedom, but doesn't really support the actual ideals. However, it does want the economic power and the military interests that goes with that power. Internet went alight when John Bolton spilled the tea, right? But the reality is that the U.S. engagement of this behavior has led to a lot of problems with domestic infrastructure falling apart, supply chains, isolation, xenophobia, Russophobia, and all of these things that are generally harming the U.S. and the U.S. citizens. So as far as the world stage is concerned, when a U.S. official arrogantly talks about how the U.S. engages in these coups, it really does make a difference of how we are viewed by the world and how our own citizens view their government. How can you trust a government that is undermining covertly and overtly other nations simply because it can?